Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is just in front, contemplating jumping into a fast-moving river. And I hope she doesn't, because I've got this much interest in going in after her. She's a brave one though, you never know. Guys, please do me a favour. Whilst I hope that you are happy and healthy doing the things that you love with the people that you love doing them with, if you wouldn't mind, please hit the like button for me, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell if you'd like to be notified when new content is dropped. And, sorry, I'm getting flooded here. Last but by no means least, if you want to drop a comment, join the conversation. Keep the insights flowing and growing so we can all be knowing what is going on. Guys, 3 things to talk about today. I'm going to try and break them down as quickly as I can so as to not make this an exercise in effort for you to be watching. But 3 different slight conversations, updates. Pedro Porro, first and foremost. To the noise, the news is as follows. At the moment, it seems like the latest we've heard, again, nothing concrete, it's all coming from journalists and ITKs, but it looks like Pedro Porro has agreed to join Tottenham, that salary demands and things won't be a problem. So there's conversations that have been happening with the player's agent and representatives, and that Tottenham and Sporting are going to sit down and meet at some point next week after the game, and that maybe then we can come to some conclusion on the transfer. It was also, mooted that Pedro Porro wasn't going to be allowed to leave. Sporting were not interested in even discussing this until after their local derby, which I think is also on Sunday, because they wanted him to play in that game. And once all that stuff's out of the way, then Tottenham hopefully will be able to find an agreement. It still sounds like Pedro Porro is only going to be joining Tottenham, according to the Sporting side, if we pay the release fee, which is about 40 million. And at the moment, Tottenham haven't offered that. I think from what I heard most recently, Tottenham are looking to do something more along the lines of like 20 million upfront, plus instalments, plus, future bonuses, all those things. And also a player could either go the other direction on loan or in permanence. And, it makes you think, who would that be? Well, the likely candidate, I guess, would be like an Emerson Royale. But then you have the noise, the news that also emerges that, one of the reasons why Tottenham are struggling to get these things done is because Emerson and Doherty don't want to go, and neither does Spence. Apparently, none of them want to leave the club and are digging their heels in. They're happy in London. Probably because they know they're not going to earn as much money wherever they go after here than what they get paid at Tottenham. So, and look, I guess they're right. They signed a contract. They don't have to go. It's not necessarily always wonderful for personal morale or team morale if you have players that are being forced out of the club that don't want to leave. And, the complications of that. How are the other players going to feel about someone? Some their friends might be thinking, put their arm around them and say, don't worry, we love you. But other people in the team might be saying, mate, you're holding us back. Please just go. So all those tentacles of collateral damage that can, materialize when you have these concerns. And of course, the other thing is that Sporting are under no obligation to do anything other than to say, no, if it's 40 million up front, all in one lump sum, or nothing at all. We don't want to lose him, but we're forced to let him go if you pay this. So I'm not going to come down and haggle and negotiate with you, because this is a trade we don't want to make. So it's complicated. I don't think it's quite as simple as just pay the money. You can make the argument that it is that simple, but at the same time, there's a lot of different things that are going on, across that whole conversation. Cash flow disruptions. What does that do to your ability to have, operational expenses changing quite dramatically with all that money going out in one lump sum, which wouldn't normally be the case? What does it do with the players who don't want to leave to make space for Pedro Porro? How does all that stuff look? It's complex, it's messy. And so I feel like it's still going to happen, but I think it's going to drag on and on and on because there's so many moving parts to it. But we'll see. As always, we will see. In other news, for me, I feel like the Marcus Edwards deal probably won't be a part of it anymore. I think that story probably is going to fizzle out. I think Tottenham may have had their head turned by Leandro Trossard and the updates that have happened there. You know, he apparently has fallen out with the Brighton coach and has been isolated from the team. He's not training with them, so make sure you take him out of your fantasy Premier League team. And that I think the agent said yesterday that he's been treated awfully, and so now a transfer is the only solution. All very messy. Tottenham obviously are linked with him, so too are Chelsea. Chelsea doing their usual thing, wait and see what someone else wants, and then suddenly they're interested too. I don't know, guys, it's all very chaotic, isn't it? And I feel like these stories are going to drag on. And I don't necessarily think it's like through choice to delay it until the last minute. I just think that these things take time when there's so many moving parts. We'll see. In the meantime, whilst all this is happening, we probably are going to have to tolerate Emerson and Doherty and Spence as our right wing back options for the remaining games in January, which are very difficult ones, aren't they? You've got Arsenal on Sunday, the big one. Today is, of course, game day eve, the day in the week when I'm most nervous and anxious about what will be. But following right behind that, you have, I'm not sure in which order it is, but I think you've got Fulham, Manchester City twice, and the FA Cup game. I think that's the four next matches. All incredibly difficult. Even Fulham, you know, the way that they dispatched Chelsea with consummate ease on Wednesday night. They are a team on the up. And, you know, I don't think that's going to be an easy game either. But we'll deal with that when we come to it. So yeah, we've got, you know, 11 men against 11 men, the same 11 men, or maybe not necessarily the same 11 men. Against Arsenal, there's good news in the injuries. In as much as it looks like Decky's back, thank goodness. But we've seen that before, we've heard that before. He comes back for a game, and then he goes missing again for 2 or 3 weeks. You know, something has to happen. There has to be a review, an analysis, and an assessment of the competence of our medical team. I just don't think that they have shown us any level of competence that would breed confidence in them on an ongoing basis. Long-term injuries seem to always take longer than they should. Short-term injuries seem to relapse. And I'm not a doctor, so there's no way I would know anything about that. We don't really hear anything about that stuff. You do hear from Conte his frustrations about the medical department. And, you know, maybe the better way to do it would be to have one of the chief medical officer to come out and discuss these things to the press so that, you know, pertinent questions can be asked of him or her rather than going via Conte, who doesn't really know the specifics. I think they do that model more in Italy and Spain. I could be wrong, but that's what I heard. And look, I just, you know, it could just be that our players are particularly fragile. But for me, the medical team have been pretty unsuccessful in, you know, repairing the physical health of our players in expedited timelines this year. But anyway, Decky's back. Bentancur and Richarlison allegedly could be back. We're waiting. I think they're doing a final day's training today. And Conte said that he'll wait and see and make a judgment on those two. I doubt you'll see either of them start the game. Could be wrong. But you might see them on the bench, which will be a real boon to our chances. And if things are going pear-shaped, then maybe we can throw them on and see what happens. But ultimately, there is that risk if they're not 100% ready, and we're throwing them on because it's such an important game, and something goes wrong, then you miss out on those guys for the next 3 or 4 games, which are incredibly tough and incredibly important in their own right. So, again, over to Conte, over to the medical team to make that assessment, and hopefully it's a case of risk-reward, and that they'll make the right decision based on, you know, whatever the players are saying and how they're feeling, you know, tonight, today, this morning, I guess. And talking about risk reward, I want to shift now into, oh, before I do, I would say, just lastly, like anyone that's going to the game, you know, we're going to need to rely on the 12th man that is the Tottenham fans as much tomorrow as we did last season. That can be the difference, or it is the difference in a tight game. And I need the Tottenham fans to be completely behind that narrative, unipolar, you know, forget about all the other politics that are going on and get behind the team, put the wind in their sails and make it as uncomfortable an experience for the players, the coaches, the fans of Arsenal as they've ever felt. Intimidate these young kids and let's see what they're made of. They are going to have full confidence and they're a very talented team, but we don't want to make their life easy for them. And so for the 90 minutes of the game and the hours beforehand, I encourage everybody to rally, rile up, get passionate beyond levels that you would usually find appropriate and make it sweaty for them. And because if we do it right tomorrow, it could be the catalyst that kickstarts our season, which has been, let's be honest, on a bit of a rocky road for the last couple of months. And it could derail, could be the start of the derailment of this Arsenal team. And, you know, whatever will happen at the end of the season will happen, but it's only one thing I want, not quite as much, but close to as much as Tottenham's success, and that is Arsenal's demise. So come on, guys, let's get behind it. But going back to that risk thing about the medical team, I want to shift the idea of risk now towards just a little bit of, I guess, forward thinking from me towards you guys. I did this video yesterday that, you know, looked a little bit closer. I didn't go into too much detail. I don't think I did, because there's so many different tentacles that you can go into when it comes to looking into ownership models. But I started with the American one and just pointed out that the economy has changed and, you know, the situation, the opportunities there for American owners that utilize debt to make their buck. As that landscape has shifted. It doesn't mean it won't shift back, for what it's worth. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that it should be written off as the ownership model at all. Just putting it out there that, you know, Tottenham would need to be able to generate enough revenue to pay off additional interest rates. And then you hope that if that is the case, and they can still do that anyway, then you hope that the risk appetite that the new owners that would come in with enough funds to be able to make you competitive. And that's obviously an unknown. You don't know who these people are, what their style is until the story would emerge. But I will go into more detail on those things. I'm going to do a series, guys, of ownership model analysis, because there's loads of different styles of ownerships of football clubs around the world. You have local, domestic, direct owned, which the best, or one of an easy example of that would have been Burnley before they sold to leveraged to the VC partners in America. Family orientated, this is usually found in lower league clubs, at least in England, but it's found commonly around the world. Then you have obviously foreign direct ownership, which an easy example of that would be Abramovich when he was in charge of Chelsea, or the Saudis that own Newcastle. You know, people coming from across the world to come in and just to buy the club outright and then work within their own style. You have supporters trust, fans owned, which is more commonly found in Central Europe, in Germany, in Belgium, and in Holland, for example. Very rarely found in the UK, but there is that model there, and they get through voting and through shares to direct how Tottenham or how any particular club go about their priorities, whether you focus on youth development, whether you focus on acquisition of young players to develop, or whether you just go for quality. All of that stuff is determined by the fans, and that's quite interesting, but I think it has its drawbacks as well, and we'll talk about that in detail when I do a review on it. Then you have stock market owned football clubs. Manchester United is technically the one company, the football club, that is still technically a stock market owned, football club, where individual fans can just go and buy shares. Tottenham, for what it's worth, still is that as well, but it's incredibly difficult now to be able to purchase shares for Tottenham because they're not listed on any particular exchange, and so it's all what's called OTC, over the counter. You have to go and find people and that have the shares and kind of do micro transactions. So whilst they are still technically, share owned, it's not the same. Manchester United are, but of course Manchester United are a bit of a combo, right? They are, on top of that, they are foreign majority owned by the Glazers, and they also have debt, leverage debt, put onto their balance sheet all the time. So that's a bit of a combo effect. There's a bunch of different ones as well, which I'll go into, that are lesser spotted, and you see them in South America and things, but where the rules are slightly different around how ownerships can happen. And I'm going to do a series on them, right? And I'll go into more details, talk about the pros and the cons of what they look like. And anyone who wants to collaborate with me on that, anyone who has any insights, who has any strong feelings about it, if you are familiar with any particular models of clubs from wherever you are, let me know, reach out to me. And I'm happy to work together and put together some hopefully some interesting, cool content. So that will be coming over the next, I'll be drip feeding them over the next couple of months, I guess, when time allows and time permits. But guys, that's kind of it. Leandro Trossard might be coming to Tottenham. We are one of the only clubs that have expressed an interest, and he wants to leave, he wants out. It's very strange. I don't know where this whole kind of attitude thing shifted for him, because I thought he was happy there, and suddenly he's not. But let me ask you this, he's a very talented player. I think he's a brilliant player. I'd love to have a player like him at Tottenham, but when you hear that he's downing tools, is that the sort of personality that you would want at Tottenham? I'm not sure. If we can get it done, and he will come in and be happy and all that stuff, then I think it's worth the crack, because I think he's a brilliant, brilliant player. But let me know your thoughts. Pedro Porro, again, looks like something's going to happen, but don't expect it, in my opinion, to happen in the next couple of days. I think it will drag out, because I just think that there are all these different other complications to it. None of our current right wing backs want to leave. That one of them would have to, surely, to make space. The disruption to cash flow if you pay all the money up front. Sporting's lack of willingness to negotiate, and Daniel Levy's lack of willingness to give in. It's not going to be easy, guys. It's not going to be easy. But listen, let's focus for now all on the North London derby. Get behind the team. I'll speak to you. I probably won't do a video tomorrow morning, because it will all be about Arsenal, and everyone's mind will be on that already. So I'll see you on Monday, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about good things and the resurgence of Tottenham Hotspur into the top 4 race and the beginnings of the demise of the Arsenal. I love you guys. Like, share and subscribe. Have a wonderful Saturday, wonderful weekend. Come on, you Spurs. And as always, bye-bye.